Hi there guys, welcome to Dinos Vault once again. This is my second vlog or video blog or vlog or whatever you'd like to call it. I've been thinking of talking about a certain topic for quite some time now, and thankfully Hyderabad Benelli had planned a ride this past weekend to the historic Srisailam Devasthanam, which happens to be an abode of Shiva and Shakti. The unique feature of this place is the coexistence of Jyotirlingam and Mahashakti in one temple, which makes it the only one of its kind. Being located in the picturesque and soothing environment of the Nallamalai Hills or Nallamala Forest Range, this forms as a perfect setting for bikers to wade through the Ghat roads and mountain twisties on superbly laid out roads, complete greenery that surrounds you, and the eerie silence that simply calms your senses down. Riding a Benelli TNT 300 in such a setting, revving the bike hard, sending the exhaust screaming, and letting the roar resound through the forest and valley area is every biker's dream. Just hearing the news that I was invited for the ride and had to cover the entire convoy all through the trip got me all excited. It was a fine Saturday morning, and most of the members of the Hyderabad Benelli Owners Group, also known as HBO, did show up on time. So, without beating around the bush, all of us suited up and set off on what would be one of the most memorable trips in my lifetime. The guy riding the RC390 is a group member's friend who wanted to tag along for the trip. I'm pretty damn sure he had a wonderful time as well. Well, now with the intro and other explanation out of the way, it's time to hit the road and talk about a very relevant topic I've been always contemplating to talk about in recent times. Now, most of you write to me on a daily basis, and mostly 9 out of 10 queries that come to me are about which is the best bike. Well, first of all, I would like to thank each and every one of you who have written to me so far for the level of trust you have in me. Now, today I'm going to talk about how to choose a bike for yourself. A simple and very relevant question these days, given the infinite number of choices that are now available in almost every segment, especially here in our Indian market. Gone are those days where our choice was limited to one or two models per segment. Now, every manufacturer wants to make their presence felt in almost every segment, be it the mass motorcycle segment or even the premium bike segment. So it's all the more necessary for you and me to not get confused and be clear about what fits the bill for you and me, given the various factors or parameters that matters to us the most. So to make things easy, I have listed my thoughts point wise such that you can take note of it more easily. So before we start out, I think we need a small break, and that's exactly what we had before embarking on the majority portion of our journey on road to Srisailam. This is where we had our breakfast, a very humble tiffin center found on the roadside. The food here was decent enough. We just had a light snack because filling up to the brim is not recommended while traveling. So as we set off, let's get started with the topic for the day: how to choose a bike for yourself, or what are the most important points you need to look into before making up your mind or zeroing in on your choice. Point number one is what interests you the most, or what are you basically looking at when buying a bike? Is it the looks? Is it the comfort? Is it the performance, the durability, the safety, the easy maintenance factor or low maintenance cost, or a bit of everything? You need to be very clear about this because some just want gorgeous looking bikes. They just want to show off. I mean, who doesn't? Every one of us would like to show off on our respective bikes because looks do matter a lot. And when we are shelling out our hard earned cash, we want something that would appear it was worth the money. Secondly, not only looks but the build quality is also equally important. Now we see most of the bikes selling in the European countries coming to India. No doubt that the bikes are world class, but you should also think about our Indian road conditions like the dust, the potholes, the temperatures, etc. The bikes might be some of the best in cool European conditions where we have great roads, but the same might not be able to thrive in the blazing hot temperatures and poor road conditions here in our nation. So take a close look at the components used and analyze whether the bike can take on our Indian road conditions, which has off-road patches right on the main roads, horrible craters during the rainy season, and vehicle breakers instead of speed breakers. Next, of course, we Indians are always obsessed with mileage. If mileage is top priority, then I would suggest limiting your options to the 110cc commuter category because we have great mileage champions being offered currently in our market in that particular segment. Even if you want to strike a perfect balance between looks, mileage and performance, then you can look up to 150 to 160cc segment, I guess, because that's where the mileage factor ends. Beyond that, we would be only looking at premium motorcycles where performance becomes the top priority and mileage is given least priority. Next, comfort too is equally important. No matter how hot the bike looks, all that exuberance would go down the drain when your butt starts aching, when your shoulders start aching, or when you start developing pain in your wrists and palms after a long ride. So make sure you get a good test ride where you assess the comfort factor. If this is the only bike you're going to own, then pillion comfort too is a major issue. You don't want to be at the receiving end when your mom or sister or wife or girlfriend ask you to drop them somewhere. Next, of course, is performance. Now, almost everyone wants to zip across the streets these days. With more and more powerful machines being made available at affordable prices, you need a decent performer to keep up with your friends, especially when you go out on a ride together. I don't root for outright brutal performance because kids or inexperienced riders are getting access to powerful bikes these days and are ending up losing their lives. Even if you do end up buying a powerful bike, it's very important to know your limits and staying in control of the bike rather than the bike taking control of you. So ultimately, I would say that performance is necessary but not beyond what you can handle. The next point is durability. Now, gone are those days where we used to get good bikes in the 60 to 70k price range. These days, even a basic 150cc commuter costs close to a lakh. Now, a price tag of around 1 lakh, even in this day and age, is not a small amount. And when we are shelling out hard earned money, we want the bike to last us at least 3 or 4 years. So, it is important to go through user reviews of the bike you're planning to buy and find out whether there are any serious issues pertaining to the model you're planning to buy. Another very important factor is safety. Now, this is always right on top of my list. I really hope our government introduces a law to make ABS a standard on bikes upwards of 150cc. The figure of accident deaths is increasing at an alarming rate as the years go by. Nearly 1.5 lakh people were killed in accidents in the year 2015. Now, imagine the number of families and lives being affected. When we look further, there are nearly 400 deaths every day just from road accidents. This is the reason why I believe life-saving features like ABS should be made mandatory in higher capacity bikes. Now, I know even ABS is not completely foolproof. A couple of my friends who were riding bikes equipped with ABS lost their lives over the last couple of years, and they were pro riders and track racers. So just because we have ABS on board doesn't mean we can ride at breakneck speeds and expect it to save us from a sure shot fatality. So it is very important to limit your speed, especially while riding on public roads. The lesser the speed, the greater is the chance of you controlling the bike in case of panic braking scenarios. Now, another important factor you ask about is the after sales service and maintenance cost. Now, many people label a particular brand as having poor after sales service purely based on their experience with one dealer. I believe there might be some other dealer who's genuinely trying to offer good service for the same brand in the same city. So it's not just about the brand, but it boils down to individual dealers providing good service. Some are focused only on making money, but some are really focused on offering the best service. So it is all the more important for you to identify such dealers. Now, talking about maintenance cost, it is usually low for our local brands like Bajaj and TVS. But since nowadays all the bikes are almost equally matched in terms of specs, features and performance, there is no significant difference in the maintenance cost, especially if you choose to buy a bike from the mass motorcycle segment. Now, all this was just the first point. So before going to the next point, I need to talk about the road that runs through the Nallamala forest area and the following Ghat road section that we encounter on our way to Srisailam. This has to be one of the best roads I've encountered to date in terms of the smooth ride they offer and also the nature completely soaking you with its pure and scenic beauty. The Ghat road section gives you a spectacular and breathtaking view, and that is something I cannot express in mere words. Then we stopped by at the legendary Srisailam Dam that has been around since 1981. This dam is constructed across the Krishna River on the border of Mehboob Nagar district Telangana and Kurnool district Andhra Pradesh. This is the second largest capacity working hydroelectric station in our country. Then we set out from there towards the hotel. We arrived at the Akka Mahadevi Grand Hotel where we were supposed to stay overnight. All of us were really starving for food, so we just got rid of our gears and invaded the restaurant section. To our disappointment, most of the food like biryani was already over, so we had to make do with what was available. The food was not all that great, to be honest. Well, then we did freshen up and I could just catch up with other members of the group. The one thing I'd really like to appreciate about this group is the mutual respect they have for one another and the fact that these guys who were once complete strangers have now become like one family. Well, after relaxing for a while, we just went out in the evening to grab a snack. We did find some lip-smacking chicken pakoras and fish fry. So after filling up our bellies with the appetizer, we then headed for the dinner. The dinner surprisingly was much better than the horrifying lunch. Then it was time to hit the sack because we needed to wake up early the next day. Well, the next day I managed to catch up with Rohit, who was among the first to own a TNT 300 here in Hyderabad. Since we're talking about how to choose a bike here, I just requested him to share with you, as a common man, how he made up his mind to go with the TNT 300. So hi guys, this time I have with me Mr. Rohit, the perfect definition of a common man, and he has chosen the TNT 300. So let's find out the reason why he went in for the TNT 300 among the competition that it has in its price range. So tell me, Mr. Rohit, what made you zero in on the TNT 300?
Hey Dino, I haven't been driving a bike for a very long time. So when I wanted to get into this sports bike category, I was thinking of a bike which would probably provide me with a beginner's kind of advantage. At the same time, be able to use it as an everyday bike, the occasional tourer, the occasional weekend ride, and also the power to able to overtake, in the city traffic. So that was the kind of bike I was looking for.
So was it kind of an all-rounder that you were looking for?
It was. I mean, I was surprised when I drove this to Goa. I was surprised at how good a tourer this 300i was.
And how has been your ownership experience? Like, how's your ownership experience been?
My ownership has been pretty good. In fact, I'm not a DIY kind of a guy. I can't go fix things on the bike and things like that. So I mostly depend on the service staff at Benelli. So there have been minor niggles with respect to brake or like an engine coolant and things like that. I just brought it over to them and they fixed everything. And the Benelli service are pretty prompt to do all those. So from that point of view, I think I'm that kind of guy who actually doesn't do any of these things on the bike, and that Benelli service helped me there.
So thank you once again for joining us and sharing your valuable experience. Well, that was Rohit sharing his experience about his TNT 300. Now, as we were running a little late already, it was decided that we would be having a breakfast on our way back home. So as the journey back home begins, I think I'll quickly run you through the rest of the points you need to bear in mind while choosing your bike. Point number 2 is, where would you use the bike predominantly, whether it is in the city or on the highway or both, and what does your daily riding schedule involve? Also, whether you like weekend getaways like touring with friends, etc. In case you need an all-rounder, something that you would use on a daily basis and also take it out on the highways on the weekends, I suggest you go for a 200cc bike. If you're going to ride mostly within the city, then I guess a 150 to 160cc bike would be more than enough. Also, if you're going to ride mostly on the highways, street naked or street fighter bikes are a strict no-no because the crosswinds really tend to ruffle you. Also, the gush of wind that hits you when a heavy vehicle whizzes past you is very unsettling on a street naked bike. It is always better to prefer a semi-fared bike or a fully fared bike that would fend off any wind blast at higher speeds. Also, on the highways, longer wheelbase and larger wheels offer better high-speed stability, so that's a point you need to keep in mind. If you prefer to own a higher capacity bike like 300cc and above, then it's always better to have a scooter or a basic commuter for daily use and taking the big bike out only for rides or tours on the weekends. Now, point number 3 is, never compromise and never take hasty decisions. Sometimes we have a bike already in our mind and our mind has suggested that bike after a lot of research and homework we might have done beforehand, but suddenly something new comes up or some friend suggests a new bike and we end up being carried away and buy that bike. So 9 out of 10 times we regret doing that after buying the bike. So it is always better to go with what your heart says, because though it is on your left, it is always right. Always remember that when you're riding your bike, it should make you feel proud. It shouldn't be something like chalta hai kind of a bike. Even if it warrants waiting for the bike, you can wait for it to be launched, and trust me, you'd be happy that you waited for that bike at that point rather than rushing into buying some other bike and regretting it later. Now, point number 4 is, never blindly go with someone else's review. Now, each one of us is born different. We have different body statures, we have different riding styles, we have different opinions when it comes to liking or disliking a particular design. Please remember that you are the best judge to figure out what is best for you, and this applies for every major decision in your life. Others can guide you with their experience and help you with the knowledge they might possess, but they can never make the choice for you, because it is ultimately you who's going to ride the bike and you who are going to experience it firsthand, day in and day out. Finally, I'd like to talk about the unsung hero in this entire trip. I believe all the Benelli bikes on this trip need to be appreciated, namely the 600i, the 600 GT TNT and the TNT 300 because none of us had any problem whatsoever throughout the course of the trip. The bike I rode was the TNT 300 and I have always been a fan of it ever since I did a first ride video of this bike. The bike was rock solid all along. You might have seen in the footage that I was doing triple digit speeds for the majority of the ride, and the bike offered superb stability, amazing acceleration, great ride quality, and above all, the perfect background score with the exhaust screaming like a beast all along. In bumper to bumper traffic, there was a bit of engine heat that I felt, but I guess that can be expected of any higher capacity bike. Also, the mileage the bike offered was very impressive. It was nearly a 500-kilometer ride, and we only had to stop once for fuel. As per my observation, the bike nearly offered a mileage of around 30 kmpl on this trip, which is very impressive for a 300cc bike. So that's about it for now. I just hope you learned something useful while also enjoying the riding footage. I thoroughly enjoyed the ride every bit. The roads were amazing, the scenery, the landscape and the mountains were spectacular, and the guys whom I rode with offered the perfect company. I'd like to thank Benelli Hyderabad for this ride. Well, that's all for now. Until next time, this is Dino saying ciao. Take care, God bless, and ride safe.